Since the Colts have given Jonathan Taylor permission to seek a trade, I thought we could run through some blockbuster trade ideas on today's episode of NFL Daily. Matthew Peterson here with some, definitely pushing the envelope trade ideas, but it's more fun to live on the wild side in August instead of being just in a cage being tamed down. So let's run into this, starting with some Jonathan Taylor stats to kind of set the scene here, because I think it's important to remind everyone that we are only 2 years removed from Jonathan Taylor leading the NFL in rushing yards, the rushing title in 2021 with 1,800 yards. Now, just for comparison, last year Josh Jacobs had the NFL rushing title with 1,600 yards. He averaged 4.9 yards a carry. Jonathan Taylor averaged 5.5 yards a carry, which was more than Derrick Henry, who had the 2 previous rushing titles. So Jonathan Taylor's rushing title was very impressive in my eyes. So with that, my first trade idea sends Jonathan Taylor to the City of Angels. He's going to join the Chargers in exchange for Austin Ekeler and a second-round pick. Now, the Colts are reportedly looking for a first-rounder. You've not seen a running back get a first-round pick since Trent Richardson, if I recall. So I don't think they're going to get a first-rounder back, but they could get a second and Austin Ekeler in exchange. Now, Austin Ekeler has been one of the best running backs in the league, not just because of what he's able to do on the ground, but of course through the air as well, as one of the best receiving backs, if not the best receiving back in our game. Now, if I had to make the case for this trade to go through, the Chargers might feel the pressure to switch things up a little bit, right? I feel like with Brandon Staley, things have been getting a little bit stale the last 2 seasons in terms of just not being able to get over the hump and really join the upper tier of AFC teams after blowing that huge lead against the Jags in the postseason, and the relationship between the Chargers and Austin Ekeler being a bit choppy after not committing to him long term and giving him a new deal. Maybe LA feels like, hey, we could kind of move on from Ekeler, who is 28 years old. He is 4 years older than Jonathan Taylor. Reset a little bit at running back, because all of our key offensive players outside of Herbert are getting up there in the age column. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Austin Ekeler, all towards the end of their career as opposed to the start of their careers. Whereas Jonathan Taylor could come in and be a new, spark for this Chargers offense and be a 1-2 tandem with Justin Herbert for years to come. So who do you think would win this trade overall? The Chargers or the Colts? Sure, the Colts are getting an older running back in Austin Ekeler, but they're also picking up a second-round pick, and I'm sure that Anthony Richardson would love to have a proven back. Not that Jonathan Taylor isn't, but I just don't know if Jonathan Taylor is even going to play at all this year for the Colts, whereas Austin Ekeler could come in there and really help Richardson out in year 1. Moving on to my second trade idea. This one is the trade that everyone is predicting, so I'll follow suit and have Miami pick up Jonathan Taylor in exchange for a first-rounder going in over to Indianapolis, but to soften the blow for the Dolphins, they also get a fourth-round back along with Jonathan Taylor. Now, why is Miami interested in Jonathan Taylor? Because their running back room is kind of missing that clear-cut RB1. No offense to Raheem Mostert or Jeff Wilson or Javonte Chain, but none of those players are really established and proven as a no-doubt RB1, 1,000-plus yard rusher. Last year, Raheem Mostert led the bunch here with 891 yards, but he also was under 5 yards a carry, which isn't bad. 4.9 yards is really good, no doubt. But Jeff Wilson followed suit with 4.9 yards a carry and 5 touchdowns. Neither player really ever emerged as the workhorse back, that guy that's going to take the lion's share of carries in Miami. And we know that the Dolphins have been interested in running backs. They did their homework on Dalvin Cook. Ultimately, he went up to the Jets. But Barry Jackson from the Miami Herald tweeted out, per a league source, the Dolphins are expected to at least explore a trade for Colts running back Jonathan Taylor, who has been given permission to seek a trade. Not sure where this will lead, but it would make sense in that he's only 24, first-team All-Pro, NFL leading rusher in 2021. I think for the Dolphins, you can make the case that the AFC is full of juggernauts right now. And if the Dolphins want to go from being the last team in the playoffs last year as the 7th seed to being a team that could potentially win the division and oust the Buffalo Bills, they might need a Jonathan Taylor. I don't know if a Jeff Wilson is going to get the job done, or a Raheem Mostert. They've got so many great pieces in Miami on both sides of the football. But now that you've got Tua and hopefully a healthy Tua this year, if you get Tua on his rookie deal paired with Jonathan Taylor on the last year of his rookie contract, the stars could align for Miami to go on a deep run down in South Beach. Speaking of the AFC East, what about the guys up in Buffalo? Here's my blockbuster trade idea for the Bills. James Cook, a second and a third to Indianapolis in exchange for Jonathan Taylor and a fifth. So the Bills don't give up a first rounder, but they do give up 2 day 2 picks, kind of like the 49ers did to get Christian McCaffrey and James Cook, someone that they like a lot right now in Buffalo, in exchange for Taylor and a fifth rounder. So James Cook last year for Buffalo in his first season wasn't overly impressive. The Bills really never had a ground game. I mean, their best rusher was Josh Allen. That's a problem. You can't have your quarterback be your number one rusher if you want to keep him healthy for a long time. So for the Bills, I just think they need to make a big move to break the glass roof, which is the Cincinnati Bengals and the Kansas City Chiefs dominating the AFC. Because you look at the Bills' recent playoff struggles, they've yet to get past these two teams. Last year, it was the Bengals in the divisional round where at home they got just curb stomped, 27-10. Whereas the year prior, we all know about the incredible game in the AFC divisional round against the Chiefs. Came down to the last couple of seconds on the clock, but they lost in overtime 42-36. And the year before that, they lost to the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. So if the Bills want to finally beat their demons, which is the Bengals and the Chiefs, it might take a star running back to join this star-studded offense with Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. But let me know if you think that Jonathan Taylor going over to Buffalo would complete the Bills' offense. Or are there issues deeper than just not having a clear-cut RB1? Give me your honest opinion down in the comment section. My fourth blockbuster trade idea has Jordan Davis, the former first-round pick out of Georgia, going over to Indianapolis along with a second-rounder in exchange for Jonathan Taylor and a third. So the Eagles are going to give up a former first-round pick in Taylor and a second-rounder, but they get Jonathan Taylor back and a third-round pick, which sort of offsets giving up a second-rounder. Now, Jordan Davis last year in his rookie season, I'll say it, he wasn't all that impressive. I mean, the Eagles felt like they had to go add Linval Joseph and Ndamukong Suh to help with their interior run defense because Davis was missing some time, but also Davis was not looking like a player that can play 3 downs in the NFL, right? I think there are some durability questions right now for the big fella coming out of Athens. Then we look at the Eagles' defensive line depth chart, and it is loaded in talent because you've got Josh Sweat, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, a lot of vets right there. Derek Barnett, a former first-round pick that has had ups and downs in the city of brotherly love, is coming off the bench. Plus, you already drafted Jalen Carter, a top 10 pick out of Georgia this past draft class. So I think the Eagles could manage without Jordan Davis. And Philly now has their star running back, even though they have made a lot of running back moves, like signing Rashad Penny and trading for DeAndre Swift. But I think you might see the NFC really come down to kind of like how we had Peyton Manning and Tom Brady for a long time in the AFC, and now we've got Burrow and Mahomes. In the NFC, it might be the Eagles and the 49ers for the next couple of years. So if Philly wants to go like a nuclear arms race with San Francisco and say, we see your Christian McCaffrey and we raise you with Jonathan Taylor, that could be their way of keeping pace with the 49ers. Even though they beat the San Francisco 49ers last year in the NFC Championship game, they beat Josh Johnson. If San Francisco is healthy at quarterback, that's a very different ball game, and the Eagles know that. So they might not be comparing their roster to other teams in the NFC, but they definitely want to compare themselves to the 49ers because that is the team to take down if you want to get to the Super Bowl in the NFC if you're the Eagles. Now, before we get on to my fifth and final trade idea, today's show was made possible thanks to our sportsbook partner, BetUS. Go to chatsports.com/bet. Promo code NFL Daily will unlock a 125% deposit bonus. So if you put that link in and put the promo code in and you deposit $100, they'll match that $100 and then give you an additional $25 on top of it. Now, my fifth and final trade idea. What about Denver entering the mix here? So the Colts get Javonte Williams, Broncos' third-round pick, second-round pick from a few years ago, along with a second-rounder and a fourth-rounder in exchange for Jonathan Taylor and a fifth-round pick. So Colts toss in a fifth-rounder, kind of offset the Broncos giving up a second and a fourth, and Javonte Williams. But Javonte Williams, unfortunately, had his season cut short a year ago, suffered a very brutal knee injury. Now, he played in week 2 of the preseason this year against the 49ers, so a miraculous recovery already after tearing his ACL, his basically anything that ends in an L or a C in his knee, he tore. But it's great to see Williams come back from it so soon and so quickly. I think for the Broncos, if you had to make the case for this trade to go through, Sean Payton, the new guy in town, he's not tied to any of the players from the previous regime. And when I say previous regime, that regime is still there. They didn't fire their GM in Denver. But Sean Payton is a very hands-on head coach. He is more or less a head coach / GM. So he might look at Jonathan Taylor going, yeah, we like Javonte Williams, no doubt about it. We're excited to see him come back. Jonathan Taylor led the NFL in rushing 2 years ago. This could be an all-time heist if we can get Jonathan Taylor, the NFL rushing leader, in exchange for Javonte Williams and a couple of pick swaps. Plus, my job right now is to save Russell Wilson. And a good way to do that is by getting a great ground game going, something they did in Seattle for a long time. So if Jonathan Taylor is viewed as an upgrade over Javonte Williams, I wouldn't be all that blown away if Sean Payton pulls the trigger on a trade like this. Now, if you were Chris Ballard and you were in charge of the Colts, which trade would you do? Look at this through the lens of Indianapolis. Trade for Austin Ekeler, get a first from Miami, get a bunch of picks and James Cook from the Bills, get a defensive player from the Eagles, or get Javonte Williams from the Broncos. Give me your honest trade idea or trade reaction or pick down below in the comment section. For me, I would go the Eagles route. You can get Jordan Davis, who I think he'd be a really talented and really special NFL player, and a second-round pick. The Colts, I think, are heading towards not a rebuild because they're already in a rebuild. They've got their rebuild quarterback in Anthony Richardson, but building a good defense during a rebuild can really help move the offense along. That way they're not constantly playing catch-up in games, and they can get some good time on the sideline and whatnot. So I think Jordan Davis in a second would be a really good pick for the Colts if they had to pick one of these blockbuster trades.